As far as more of a good thing goes, this GLS class is about as good as it gets. And on the surface, it looks pretty simple. Mercedes basically took the smaller GLE class and made it bigger, except this isn't just a case of stretching the wheelbase and adding some cargo room, sort of like the way Chevy did between the Suburban and the smaller Tahoe. Instead, this all comes down to one single letter that tells the true story of just how special this SUV really is. For more expert car reviews, don't forget to share our channel and subscribe so you can catch some of this and maybe even a little of that. Okay, time for a quick lesson in the Mercedes-Benz hierarchy, and the lineup starts with the A-Class, and the same kind of designation applies to the SUV side of the showroom. So you've got the GLA and then the GLB and then the GLC. Then Mercedes skips to the GLE, and that's the one I talked about off the top, and the same applies to the cars. You've got the E-Class, and then there's the G-Wagon, which I think is the most criminally overrated vehicle on the market today. And then you get this GLS class, and what makes this so special is that S. That is it. It's that simple. Because if you take a look at the car side of the showroom, you've got the S-Class. That is the pinnacle of the lineup, and the same applies here. Not necessarily in terms of dollars and cents. The G-Wagon is more expensive than the GLS, but really this is that kind of showpiece, that crowning jewel of the SUV lineup, not the G-Wagon. So if you thought my take on the G-Wagon was bold, I hope you are sitting down for this one. This thing rides better than that Maybach S-Class that Jody and I reviewed a couple years ago. I know, but hear me out. This thing is just so buttery and smooth. It is so supple. Air suspension, adaptive dampers, it's so good. And I thought for sure this thing had that e-motion control that Mercedes has that uses the camera here to read the road ahead and make these little micro adjustments to the suspension system. I was convinced that this had it, an $8,900 upgrade, and I was like, wow, it is really doing a lot of heavy lifting here. I reached out to Mercedes just in case, and no such thing here. This just rides on the stock air springs and adaptive dampers, no e-motion control. I am just blown away at how smoothly this thing cruises around. It absorbs every single imperfection on the road, and it is incredible. Might be the smoothest vehicle I have ever tested. So this version I'm testing is the GLS 580, and that means it's powered by a twin turbocharged V8, 4 liters, 510 horsepower, 538 pound-feet of torque. So much output. It is still very usable, but it can be a monster when you really get your foot into it. That is great. It also uses a mild hybrid system, so it's a 48-volt system. You know, it doesn't have a starter motor anymore. It's an integrated starter generator unit, so it takes the place of an alternator and a starter motor. That's pretty cool. It can run a bunch of the accessories in here, and this thing will coast to a stop with the engine shut off. Kind of cool little tricks. That's not what the story's about here, though. The story's about the other engine in the lineup. I really like that straight 6-cylinder that you can get, and you get in the GLS 450 or whatever. It's so confusing, all of these different numbers that Mercedes uses, but not the 580. Let's put it that way. That thing uses that 3-liter straight 6, and it is so good, and it is a great way to save a whole bunch of money. It starts at 116 grand or so in Canada with that straight 6, $140,000 with this V8. Something that's cool in Canada that you don't get in the US, you can get just about every possible feature, optional or standard, with the straight 6 that you get with this 8-cylinder. In the US, you cannot get that e-motion body control module thing with the camera preview. You don't get that with the straight 6, but you do get it here in Canada, and that does help to kind of close the gap between the two. There's less reason to opt for this V8 than there is in the US. I'm telling you, that straight six is just fantastic. Another incentive to pick the straight six, it burns way less gas, at least on paper. I have been blown away by this thing this week, not just the ride quality. This thing has been so miserly considering the size of it, and again that it's got that V8 engine, it's got full-time all-wheel drive. I have been burning just about 11 liters per 100 kilometers, which is better than the straight six is rated for, and way better than this thing's official combined average of 14.6 liters per 100. That is pretty atrocious. I cannot believe this thing is doing so well, and I haven't been doing anything differently. I haven't been hypermiling. I did my normal drive loop that I always tell you guys about. It's about 200 kilometers. Did everything the same as normal. And when I did that, this thing was averaging 9.8 liters per 100 kilometers. That mild hybrid system, I think, does a little more than most of these systems do. It has been incredible. But again, the glass half full approach with that straight six is it probably burns even less than the 11.6 or whatever it's rated for. So just one more reason to take a look at that thing instead. But if you do like that raw power, this thing has it in boatloads. So I know I've been heaping a lot of praise on this thing, and it is very well deserved, but it's not perfect, and I will start with my first complaint, and that is the steering. I do not like it. There is such a massive dead spot on center. This doesn't come down to personal preference either. It is just bad. Now, there is some feel once you really get deep into the turns, but not so much anything just barely beyond center. Don't like that. Right now, I'm pulling up to this stop, and it just doesn't have what I'm looking for, and that is feedback to know which direction the wheels are pointed. That I would like to see, because even in sport mode, it is very, very bad. But other than that, the ride, the drive, all of that stuff is typical Mercedes. It's smooth, it's luxurious, it does what you expect it to, and it does drive a little bit smaller. I know that is a stereotype, but this thing doesn't feel much bigger than the GLE class, even though it is. This thing is huge. I am talking longer wheelbase than the Chevrolet Tahoe. That is significant. This thing's got something like, I don't know, 8 inches more wheelbase than you get with the Toyota Grand Highlander. All of that is really cool, but the downside, how the space is utilized inside. This third row, pretty useless. I was actually shocked. This might be the worst third row that I have ever tried to squeeze in. Now, technically, I can sit back there, but there is no way that anyone could sit in the second row seats with me in the third row. They are perfectly vertical. They do not make sense to sit in, and that is a huge problem. I think Mercedes should just offer a third row delete and make this thing the proper luxury hauler that it is. And since we're on the subject of my complaints, here's another one. These running boards, they're useless. I don't get it. They don't stick out far enough to actually be useful, but they stick out just far enough that every time I get in and out of this thing, I whack my foot, I whack my shin. I don't get it. Sure, I guess they kind of fill out the space down there, but they're clearly not about the practicality. Anyways, everything else that you could imagine is here, both standard and optional. All the features you could imagine. This great leather upholstery. I've got massaging seats up here. This one's got optional massaging seats in the second row to make sure that your passengers are comfortable too. I really enjoy driving this thing more than I thought I would. Don't get me wrong, it's luxurious and I knew it would be, but it's just so serene with the upgrades here. This thing's got one of those, I don't know, upgraded acoustics packages with all this laminated glass. It's like a mortuary in here. It is so deathly quiet. It is unbelievable. You're alone in your thoughts. It's actually really relaxing and serene. Like I said, a few minor complaints. The big one is that useless third row, but other than that, this thing has got it going on. Right, Will? 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 To recap, I like the incredible ride quality, the smooth powertrains, and the overall luxury vibes you get with the GLS class. I don't like the cramped third row, the vague steering, or the useless little running boards it has. The poise and presence of the S-Class are huge reasons why it's so special, and a bunch of that really does come down to the sleek and stylish proportions that only a sedan can deliver. But as far as living up to the massive expectations set by this S-Badge, the GLS class more than delivers. The ride quality is incredible, and yes, you can fit it with all the fancy features it needs to feel like a proper premium hauler. And if you're still not sold on it, consider this. The S-Class, it's actually more expensive. No, we aren't going to get into a feature-by-feature breakdown, but the S580, so the one with the same engine as this GLS class I'm testing, it starts at $160,000 in Canada. That's 20 grand more than this GLS 580. I don't know about you, but that seems like an awful lot of savings for something so damn smooth and special.